Hey everyone, and welcome back to Robbie's Backstage Bants. Today I am joined by the lovely Jacob Fowler, who's currently on the UK tour of Heathers. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I am great, on all the better for chatting to you as well.
Oh, bless.
Now, would you like to tell everyone who you play in Heathers?
So in Heathers, I play Jason Dean, JD for short. He's kind of like he's the antagonist, let's call him. He's not the most pleasant man in the world.
No.
But when you first meet him, he's quite cheeky chappy, and then yeah, he takes Veronica on a wild ride through Westerburg High School.
Oh, and yeah, wild ride, probably the best way to put things. Um, but no, JD is an unreal character, and I can only imagine how your vocal cords feel every night. It's just
Yeah, it's been nice. It's nice today. It's a Friday today, so we've only got one show later, so I've managed to I've had the day off. But we've just had four. We have two shows on a Wednesday, two shows on a Thursday, so we've had four shows in 2 days. So I am. It knackers me out. I'm a baritone as well, so I'm not a typical kind of tenor that JD would be, but it's fun. It's the most incredible role I think I'll ever probably have the chance to play. So I'm lapping up every moment.
Oh, I can only imagine. But anyway, now, for those who don't know, this isn't Jacob's first time in Heathers. Oh no, not just this tour. There's been more. So what was your original Heathers audition like?
Funnily enough, I was chatting to Paul Taylor Mills, who's the producer, about this yesterday. So I asked to be in the show. I don't know how long we've got, but I'll try and give you the full story in a short way. I messaged Paul Taylor Mills because he followed me on Instagram, and he'd followed me for ages. I'd followed him for ages because he was like the guy that runs Heathers. I was like, cool, must follow him.
Yeah.
I messaged him in May 2021 asking for an audition for the Haymarket version with that
Yeah.
subsequently had Jordan Luke Gage, Christina Bennington. And he was like, and it was they always had Jordan, so it was for cover JD. And he was like, yeah, send me you doing Freeze Your Brain. I didn't have an agent or anything. It's
Mm.
literally all through like direct message. And then he got back about a week later and was like, oh yeah, send me the sides, the script. Did that. And about a week later, he messaged me and said, who's your agent? I was like, oh my goodness, it's getting quite far. Then subsequently, I had to pull out because I was with Since September, my band, and I had lots of other things going on and I couldn't do it. Like, which is now in hindsight is, I wish I'd have done it because it probably, if it transpired, it would have been my West End debut. Um,
Yeah.
but I then in the October when I found out that Heathers was going to the other palace, I did the same thing basically. But this is what I was talking to Paul about yesterday. I got a message at 9 o'clock on the first day of rehearsal. I didn't know it was their first day of rehearsals, but it was. I
Mm.
got a message at 9 o'clock from my agent. I had an agent by this point saying, they've got everyone. They don't need anyone. Like I didn't send anything new. I just basically said to my agent, can you see if they need anyone? They had everyone. I was like, okay, whatever. 9 o'clock in the morning. 11 o'clock, I got a message from Paul Taylor Mills saying, what are you doing for the next 13 weeks? And then that was 11 o'clock. By 5 p.m., I'd sent my stuff to the US team. I checked off, went in on Tuesday for the first day of rehearsals. That's it. That's all that I ever did. And then here I am now. Like it's been a
Brilliant.
wild, very unconventional audition process, but that's how it worked out for me. Yeah.
Wow. And here we are.
And here we are.
Now, obviously, you did Heathers at the other palace for quite a while.
Yeah, about 5 months, 6 months.
Yeah. And then you went on to tour. Now, did that just gradually sort of happen, or did you re-audition, or
No, when I was coming to the end of my time, I had to leave Heathers because I was doing the Little Mix tour.
yes, yeah.
So I never wanted to leave. I never would have left, but I had obviously something else, so I was obviously going to do that.
Mm.
Both incredible opportunities. And then but as I was leaving Heathers the first time, there was rumors about a tour, and it was rumored to be like October, November of last year, just gone.
Mm.
So I was saying like, and at this point I hadn't booked Cinderella, which I ended up doing last year in October, November.
Yes, yeah.
So I didn't have anything. So I literally messaged Paul about three times saying like, hey, if there is any like other version of Heathers that ever comes up, I'd love to be JD in it basically. And he was like, oh, no tour as of yet, like nothing planned. And in
Yeah.
hindsight, there was probably very faint rumors, but nothing planned. So he was correct in what he said. And then when there was a tour announced, I hadn't heard anything, hadn't had like oh no, I got an availability check, they call it, in about August last year, basically saying, are you available to do it? If we should want you, that's kind of what it is. It's not
Yeah.
an offer, but it's like you know, if we were to want you, would you be free? and it just said 2023, and I was like, yes, of course. That was in like the August, and then I was on holiday in January. Got off the plane. I knew they started rehearsals on the
Mm.
Monday, and I landed on a Monday morning, like 7 days before. And I landed, and I got a message from Paul saying, "Do you want to do the tour?" So I had 7 days preparation, but obviously I knew the role, so it wasn't. I didn't
Yeah, yeah,
care
yeah.
about that. But yeah, so it literally, I only found out I got the role in January, but I didn't have to re-audition. I didn't have to do anything. I literally just got a message
Brilliant.
saying, "Do you want to do it?" Which was very kind of them. But Paul had seen me do it. The American team hadn't seen me do it, but I'm sure they'd heard or they'd been sent footage or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's literally how I got back into it. So it's kind of Heather's has never left me since I started in November 2021.
Amazing. So you must have quite a connection with the show now. Just
Absolutely. I
you,
mean,
yeah.
absolutely. It's changed my life. And like, I will always, or, I don't mind, well, maybe I will in 5 years, but I don't think I will ever mind people being like, oh, Jake Fowler from Heathers. Some people don't like to be attached to one thing, but,
Mm.
it's given me the platform I have. It's given me the success I have. So I would never, ever, badmouth it or not want to be associated with it.
I mean, it's a brilliant show. I saw it on tour, last tour, and then I'll hopefully be back.
Fingers
Got to see
crossed.
it. Got to see you now. It's especially
You've got
after
it.
this. There's no way. So obviously you rehearsed for the other Palace version, then you rehearsed for tour. How did the rehearsals differentiate? Was it much different for you rehearsing for tour? Was it a different vibe?
Well, obviously, the first time I was ever rehearsing the show, I was rehearsing as the geek. I was never JD. I
Right,
was
yeah.
I was an ensemble member. So, and then the second time I was JD. So that differed.
Yeah.
Apart from that, they were very, very similar rehearsal processes. We had 2 weeks for both, which isn't very long at all, but
Oof.
it's obviously doable. Every version has done it in 2 weeks. I don't know about the original like Carrie and Jamie version.
Mm.
They might have had a bit longer because they were like putting it on for the first time ever. But ever since then, it's always been everyone's done it in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And everyone knows the songs, so it's
Well,
easier in that
yeah.
respect. But yeah, I think the actual process. Well, the other palace we got to rehearse at the other palace because Bill Kenwright, who's a producer, had just bought the other palace, so it was his space to use. So we literally rehearsed on the stage at the other palace. There was no set; they hadn't built the set yet, but it was like on the stage. Whereas here, obviously, we're on tour, so we couldn't rehearse at any venue. So we rehearsed just at Lyric Hammersmith in London. But apart from that, no, very, very similar. It was nice to have well, I'd met Kevin before briefly, but it was nice to have Andy, Kevin, and Larry for the rehearsal process. So Larry, and especially for me, Larry O'Keefe, who wrote the music to Heathers, he wrote
Yes.
Legally Blonde as well. And I did Legally Blonde as an Amdram when I was like 17 or something, played Warner.
Brilliant.
And that was like one of the first musicals I ever did. And I was like, I love Legally Blonde. It's one of my favorite musicals. So to
Yeah.
even, I love Heathers as well, but to meet him as like someone that I looked up to when I was young, and like I think, wow, you wrote Legally Blonde. That's so cool. I mean, it's very cool that you wrote Heathers as well, but like Legally Blonde for me is like, mind blowing. So I was very, very excited to meet him. And yeah, so but apart from that, the both processes were pretty similar.
Mm. Now, how are you finding tour?
I love it. I love tour. It's nice to go to different venues. It's nice to go to different cities and actually explore the city outside of work. And it's just nice it makes it fresh I think a pretty general consensus is that, doing a show we're doing this for about 9 months or 8 months, doing a show for like a typical year-long contract on the West
Yeah.
End doesn't, I would never ever say boring, but it can get familiar. You can become too familiar with it to the point where, whereas doing it on tour, it has to change every single week. I mean, musical theatre in general changes night to night because depending on the audience, that's the age-old thing, and that's true. But going from city to city just changes even more. Also, there's the nice things about tour, which is like, well, our tour anyways, that you do 8 shows within 5 days instead of 8 shows in 6 days. That's why we have that Tuesday, Wednesday double show and Saturday. But it means that you have 2 days off. One of them is technically a travel day, but if you travel on the Saturday night, you can have the whole of the Sunday and the Monday off. And it works a bit better sometimes, especially if you're close. For example, York, I will come on the Tuesday and then do a show on the Tuesday, 2 Wednesday, 2 Thursday, Friday, 2 Saturday, and I don't think there's a late train on Saturday, but then I can get home early on Sunday morning and have all of Sunday, all of Monday off. So things like that are nice about touring, and yeah, just seeing cities and going to different, being in a different dressing room every week, like that's quite cool because you get to, by the end of this tour, I will have pretty much played every major theatre in the UK. Like, even to know that is very cool.
Yeah, that is great. Is there any venues you're most excited to visit?
I'm very excited for, of course, I'm excited for York. I've never been to York
Cosra.
before.
Cosra.
I'm very excited for Leicester because that's where I live at the moment, and
Yeah.
I've been to the Curve a lot, and I've never performed there. Um, Liverpool is just a fun city. Glasgow. Apparently, well, at the moment we're in Dublin, and this is insane. Like, this theatre is huge, and this dressing room, I didn't realise it's like a bit of a thing in the musical theatre community. There's two dressing rooms at this theatre in Dublin, and they're both like suites. I don't know if you can like see it. It's like
Look at
it,
that.
it's like a penthouse suite. It's unbelievable. So
Wow.
Jenna's got one, I've got one. So I'm literally living like and we're here for 2 weeks as well, which is the longest we'll ever go anywhere. So I'm literally living my like best life in Dublin.
Wait.
But no, I'm genuinely excited for everywhere because I've either been there before and I loved it, so I'm excited to go back, or I've never been there, so I'm excited to go in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, you'll enjoy York and you will enjoy Sunderland Empire because that is a gorgeous theatre as well.
Yeah, I've heard.
She's stunning. So, hey, I might come visit you again. Oh, this is great.
There you go,
Um,
twice.
so what's your favorite thing about playing JD?
I mean, the journey he goes through. It's the good thing about JD is there isn't just one way of playing him or
No.
one. It can be different every night, and it can be different. Not that I necessarily do it, but different for every person that plays them. Most big major roles like that, there's a way of playing them. Um, like I'm not comparing him to these type of characters, but like the Elphabas and the Valjeans and there is people put their own spin on it, but there's one way that production wants you to go with it. JD, oh my goodness me, the lights gone off. They're on
Oh,
sensors. I know I'm gonna have to stand up to put the sensors on. There you go. That's how fancy it is. They're on sensors. So when I come back after like in the interval, they're all off. It's like it's complete
wow.
dark. Um, but yeah, JD has this kind of, and I think it's to do with the way the creative team allow you to make your own decisions as
Yeah.
well. But JD, he's got such an arc throughout the show where he starts off very charming and very kind of boy next door. I mean, he's clearly always a bit kind of mysterious, but that's kind of sexy at the beginning. But by
Yeah.
the time he to like the end of Act One, you're thinking, oh goodness, I can't believe I thought he was potentially nice. And then he goes and then he goes back up at the beginning after they sing 17. It's like, oh, we forgive him, we forgive him. And then back to like the end of I Say No, and it's like, oh goodness me, he goes in this massive, and then even by the end, just as you think, oh goodness, he's about to do an awful thing, the last line he says in the whole show is, and once I disappear, clean up the mess down here, and it's like his final plea to Veronica is like please,
Yeah.
please, whatever we did, like I regret it almost.
Yeah.
So then you think, oh well, I don't forgive you for what you did, but maybe you had a
But I
slight
like you
redemption
anyway.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, the nice thing about Heathers, I always say, is that at the very end, it's not like West Side Story. Well, of course it's not, but it's not like West Side Story where everyone walks out and it's like, no music, everyone just walks out, bows, everyone's crying. It's like by the end of it, you're like, na, 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 na. And it's everyone's together again. I'm stood next to Martha, who I don't speak to at all in the show or even look at. And then obviously Veronica. And, it's nice because everyone comes together and all of a sudden I can actually have fun with the ensemble because
Yeah.
JD. I tell you what, if you don't get on, if the JD and Veronica don't get on, it is a nightmare for the JD because that's the only person you're ever on stage with.
This is
Like
true.
you'd be working with someone that he literally walks on, talks to Veronica, walks off, walks on, talks to Veronica, walks off, sings a song, walks off. He has one scene with Duke, and then like a tiny scene with Kurt and Ram, but they're not nice scenes. The only person he's ever got really like any rapport with is Veronica. So God forbid any actors didn't get on. Luckily, me and Jenna get on absolutely incredibly, but like, God forbid, because it's quite a lonely role, really.
Yeah.
But you don't get to speak to any of the ensemble or even the Heathers, really. And he's always got a bad thing to say about everyone. So it's
Well,
not
yeah,
even like
yeah.
exactly. But yeah, no, it's just an incredible arc that he has, and I love it. I love it so much.
Oh, brilliant. That's so good. Do you have a favorite song in the show?
It meant to be yours. I mean, it's just such a kind of it's a power trip. Like I'm literally
Yes.
doing that song, and I'm like, Oh, especially, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it's the first contract I did, or if it was because like being in Heather's back. I mean, it still is a novelty to me because it's incredible. But like,
Yeah,
especially when I was first ever at the other Palace, I never knew because I was the understudy. I never really knew when was going to be my last time playing JD because, like, it
yeah.
turns out I played quite a lot, but I didn't know that. So I was all. I think whenever I'd be doing it, I'd be giving it. Not that I don't give it 100%, but now I know I'm JD. I know I'm going to have to do it 8 times a week for the next 8 months. So I pace myself, especially midweek matinees. Whereas then I didn't know. So I really, I mean, I knackered myself. Looking back, I was absolutely exhausted, and I am now. But I mean, I really went for it, and like I think something about the other palace being so small and the audience are there, they're right in front of you. And
Yeah.
like there was like this bit where just before I'd go on for Meant to Be Yours, I have to, Veronica says, I am not the problem, just before he comes on. And I literally used to pass her, run on, and hide behind the window, ready to come through and do the knock knock. And I'd be there, but the way the other palace is, it curves around. So I was stood behind a window here, or crouched down, waiting to come through to do the knock knock. And there'd be four audience members that could, I mean, not even they could clearly see me. I was just looking
Yeah.
at them. I started to make it a thing where I'd literally look to the side and just stare at them before I went on. And they very much know they're not looking at JD. They're looking at because I'm not meant to be seen. So they're very much looking at the actor.
Yeah.
But I'd be JD on purpose and I try and freak them out. And then things like that, it just made it so much more like, but still, Meant to Be Yours is the best. Well, sorry, not the best song in the show, but it's my best song in the show because it's
I
just
mean,
it, I mean, some people would think it's the best song in the show because it is. It's just so massive. So is I
yeah.
Say No, but they kind of almost come back. Well, they've got Kindergarten Boyfriend in the middle, which is very different. But they that last 20 minutes
Mm,
is so mega. Like I'm up here and I hear the yo girl keep it together. And I'm literally like, oh my God, this is it. Like that's the beginning of this like 10-minute section that just goes boom, 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 boom. And it, oh my, even thinking about it, it gives me heart palpitations. I'm like, oh my God, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. But it's such a power trip. I come off and I come up here and I'm like, I have to grab my water and then go back down and well, I'm not going to spoil it, but go back down with a prop and like,
mm,
do this final scene really. And it's just the last 20 minutes of that show for me are like, it's just
wow.
like nothing
Yeah.
else. So
No. It's a very powerful show, I think, in general. And I think
yeah,
that's one reason why everyone loves it so much.
yeah. I think it's so
Definitely.
relatable. People, everyone's been to school and everyone knows people that are like the Heathers. Everyone knows people that are, well, hopefully they don't, but everyone knows what type of person JD is. And it's just so, and I actually think that's people are, even I say sometimes, I'm like, oh, I wonder why it didn't do as well on Broadway as it did here or off Broadway. And I think it's because maybe in America it's too close to home. Like, they still deal
Yeah.
with all those problems like guns in schools and, not to get too political, but they do.
Mm,
That is still very, very prevalent. Whereas we've never had to, well, I know we have in the past, but not in the last 20 years have we had to deal with
no,
guns in schools. Really, it's that would be such an unfortunate event if it's just not a thing. If you saw all of a sudden, oh, there's been a mass shooting in a UK school, like
it would be.
it wouldn't be unbelievable. Whereas in the USA, it happens like every week it seems. So it's
Awful.
probably too close to home there. Whereas here we're slightly more removed from the subject of the show, so you can almost be a bit like, whoa, whoa, imagine that. Whereas actually they're probably
Yeah,
watching, going, okay, what's new? And which is a shame, which is a huge shame.
it really
Uh,
is.
but I think that's why it's done so well in the UK is because we're a bit more slightly removed from it. I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Obviously, the show is coming to York on the 9th till the 13th of May, which is, considering I'm going to get this out next week, it's in a week's time, which is really
Yeah,
exciting. So if you are in York, grab your tickets, go. I'll put a link in the description for that. Grab some of them. And if you want to see Heather's on the rest of the tour, you can. I will put a link to the website where you can see all the other tour dates and book your tickets for that. Now, there's one more question I have for you, which is going to link
go.
in with what I've just said. Why should people come and see the show?
I think I don't know if I'm biased, but I don't think I am because I remember seeing this show for the first time ever without any ties to it, and I remember it's the only show I've ever seen where I've not known anything that was going to happen. I saw it at the Haymarket, on
Hmm.
gala night, fun enough. I didn't mean to see it on gala night, but it just happened to be gala night. And I saw Carrie and Jamie, and obviously it's a different cast, but it's the exact same production.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing it on the very back row of the Haymarket in London, literally like looking down like that. And all I knew is that I knew a bit of Candy Store and I knew a bit about who Carrie Hope Fletcher was, but apart from that,
Yeah.
not a clue. And I walked out of that theatre and I was like, hey, this is one of my favourite musicals. And that doesn't happen to me. I'm just looking
Brilliant.
behind you and like, I don't like Hamilton, for example. I can appreciate what it's done, but I don't like it. So I'm a rarity in musical theatre. Come from
Yeah.
away, I love it now, but the first time I saw it, it wasn't for me. Just to show you the type of thing that like clearly they're hits and I'm
Yeah.
6. I'm just, and Juliet, pretty much everything that's behind you, I've seen it and I love it now, but I didn't like it on first,
Yeah.
like viewing. Yeah, so I've seen a lot of things that on first viewing I haven't loved. Heather's on first viewing, without any bias, I loved it. And I think hopefully that's enough for people to be like, oh, okay. And maybe people will come and not love it. For example, if you don't like anything that's even remotely rude, and I mean remotely rude, you like, I'm sure you still enjoy it. I think it would surprise you. But like, for example, if you don't like swearing, there are bits of swearing in there. And like, there are a lot of things that could trigger people.
Yeah.
However, I think that even if you think something might trigger, I mean, if it's really going to trigger you, obviously don't do that to yourself.
Mm.
But a lot of people have come to this show that they think, well, they know they do have things that trigger them, and actually they've walked out and thought, no, that's helped me deal with how I trigger that because nothing is touched on in a rude or well, it's rude, but nothing is ever attacking a minority for the sake of it. It's attacking it in the context of the show and then showing how actually that's not the correct way to be in society. By the end of the show, the good guys win, and I think that's a very optimistic, way of looking at things. I'd like to hope.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny, it's sad, it's depthful, but yet it's very light-hearted. It's kind of it really does suit a big majority of people. I think it's really for the general public. There's no one specific,
Yeah.
it has this kind of young cult following that's kind of like 14 to 20. It does have that, but that's not what it is. If you think it's going to be like Mean Girls, it's not. If
It's
you think
not.
it's going to be like a chick flick, it's not. It's very depthful, especially because JD comes into the situation and really flips. It could be very Mean Girlsy, but it's got this
It's got
character that
you.
that really messes stuff up
It does.
in an exciting way. So yeah, I think that's why people should come and see it.
Amazing. And I could not have said that any better than what you that was it. But no, aside from that, I want to thank you all for watching. I want to thank you for joining me, Jacob. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thanks for having
Um,
me.
and I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.